Welcome to the Troy City Council. This is technically our January regular meeting, but there are no legislative items for us to consider. So as you obviously heard, we decided to pivot and turn it into a public forum so that we could hear from you. So I would ask that you help us open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember DiLorenzo,
Present.
Councilmember Struber,
Present.
Councilmember Spain McLaren, Councilmember McKee,
Present.
Councilmember Favreau,
Present.
Councilmember Campbell Cohen, Council President Steele.
Present. As I mentioned, tonight is a public forum, and it's our opportunity to hear from you. It's not going to be a dialogue. We're not going to be necessarily responding. We will be taking notes and following up on your comments. But tonight, we just want to hear from you. For those who were here earlier, some folks did sign in. So we'll ask that as I call your name, you come forward. Please give us your place of residence. You don't have to get specific on an address, but your place of residence would be helpful for us. We'd like you to keep your remarks to 7 minutes if that's possible. And if when we finish our list of those who've signed in, then we can have anyone in addition who's come in after the list was made up. So we'll begin this evening with Tim Fergel. No? You can hold it if that's easier for you as well.
That should be fine.
Okay.
Good evening, Council President Steele, honorable council members, members of the public. My name's Tim Fergel. I'm the executive director of the Troy Public Library at 100 2nd Street. I came here tonight just to do a monthly update, which I hope is something that will be more regular in 2026 moving forward. So one of the first items on my list tonight is I want to thank the community and thank the voters for approving the Troy Public Library's budget request.
Can't hear you off the mic.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, one more time. All right. So I just wanted to thank the voters and the community in Troy for supporting the library's budget increase this past September. We're very grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve the community. The library has also recently completed our $1.9 million HVAC improvement project. So we are very excited to be open more than 7 days during the month of July and serving the community. So looking forward to air conditioning in our 130-year-old building. Some of the other activities that have been happening at the library since my last visit to council. The library hosted Mayor Mantello during the Victorian Stroll to do a reading of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, and we provided free family portraits for the community in front of our fireplace. We were very excited to be open on a Sunday for that event. It's something we're looking forward to doing more of in the future for the Victorian Stroll. Our talks with bargaining with the library's first union, Workers United, is progressing well. Both sides are pleased with the progress, and we're looking forward to finalizing our first contract, hopefully in the spring. Yeah, let's clap for that. The Board of Trustees of the Troy Public Library are beginning our annual update to our long-range strategic plan. So over the course of the next 6 months, the board and I will be reaching out to the community, looking for people to provide their voice on the direction of the library in the community. We will be doing a community survey, doing some focus groups. If you are interested in participating in that, please feel free to contact me after the meeting, and I can take your name so that way when we begin, we'll be in touch. The library was also recently awarded a $275,000 New York State Library construction grant to address the roof at the Lansingburg branch. So again, we were very excited about this. I want to thank Assemblymember McDonald for his help with that, along with Senator Ashby. We are going to be beginning the formal bid solicitation process and things like that in the coming months. The library also recently completed a roughly $95,000 state library construction grant for 2027 in order to address renovating the interior of the Lansingburg Children's Room. So hopefully in 2027, we can have the building fully, repaired from the damage of the flood in 2023. So we're very excited to get that branch open again. The library has also been busy. In the 1 year that I've been here, we've started to restructure the staffing at the library in order to accommodate staff safety while also serving the public. I think I've hired something like 19 out of the 32 positions at the library in my first year. We've recently hired a new public information officer, Patrick Kiley, who will be joining me at next month's meeting. We've also hired 2 additional frontline staff members in order to address the frequent closures due to a lack of staff. That's been sort of a structural issue for the past years. So my focus now is on making sure that we have enough people to safely staff the building at all hours and hopefully return to evening hours after next year's budget. I also want to welcome the new trustees to the board of the library: Anthony Moen, Samantha Hertler, Evelyn Greenstein, and Marie Gavazzi. We're all elected and appointed by the public during our last election to help oversee the library. So that's all from me tonight. I look forward to sharing more with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Our next speaker is Francis Sweet.
I am not that tall. Francis Sweet from South Troy. First of all, I want to thank you guys for doing this, for giving the public this time to speak about the issues that we care about. I feel a lot of the time that the old council and most of the administration saw public comment as an imposition, something to be hurried through or ignored altogether. And I'm glad to see that the new council is doing things differently and actually inviting public comment. I've been to almost every city council meeting since the spring. I know a lot of people have been coming a lot longer than that, and they probably know more than I do, but this year has really opened my eyes to how truly dysfunctional our city government is. The reports are always late. The agendas go up at the last minute with information only getting to the council, sometimes hours beforehand, with no time to review it. Public comment rarely changes anything. The administration can't keep a comptroller to save its life, and we still have no detailed finances on the city hall move. Listening to the annual budget presentations felt like a joke. This administration has repeatedly shown bad or rushed decision-making. They rushed through plans for the city hall move with only symbolic public input. And I don't know where the planning is on the Route 2 redesign, but last I heard, the administration was leaning towards the worst option and ignoring the choice that most residents supported. With so many people now on the council with financial and public policy backgrounds, I hope you get all the numbers and the details. I hope you tell us what's going on. And most importantly, I hope you listen to public feedback. There's been a massive lack of government transparency in Troy, and I hope that ends now. I'm sick of a council that rubber stamps everything the mayor wants rather than doing independent research and pushing back when appropriate. One or two lone voices can't accomplish anything, which is why I hope you all use this mandate to make real progress in the city. That, of course, includes passing good cause tenant protection legislation. Good cause is what got me interested in the city council in the first place, so I'd be remiss not to mention it. But there's much more that needs to be done to stabilize the renting population of this city, including more proactive code enforcement and other protections that would enable people to stay in their homes instead of being forced to constantly shift to new apartments. We also have homeless people in this city that the mayor specifically has been extremely hostile towards. Panhandling is actually protected under the First Amendment, and those signs she had put up are just skirting the line to a lawsuit. Other municipalities have been sued. So that is something she is really skirting the line on. Every time I hear clean up the streets, it just means getting rid of homeless people. But shifting them out of the city center doesn't make them go away. You know what gets an unhoused person off the street? Housing. Some people will argue they're just addicts or alcoholics. Well, you know what? A lot of people in homes are that too, but we don't say anything about them, do we? Providing people with stable housing is the first step to solving the homelessness crisis in this country. Low-cost, affordable housing, transitional housing, group homes, all get people off the street and into safe housing. We can start by making sure there are affordable units in every new construction, by limiting the number of short-term housing rentals like Airbnbs, by repossessing vacant homes from negligent owners, and by reviving the zombie properties in our area. I added this in last minute, but on a completely different topic, given the events in Minneapolis, I feel it's appropriate to address the issue of ICE. Our county sheriff in Rensselaer has a cooperation agreement with ICE called 287G. Shame indeed. While this council can't do anything on the county level, I think we should make it clear that our city's police force and resources are not for use by ICE. If they are a federal agency, they can use federal resources and not divert local law enforcement away from their actual jobs. I'm not sure how much power the city council has, but these ICE should not be able to use city resources or structures in their operations at the very least. There is so much good that the city council can do. So many things that you can push for, advocate for, and accomplish. So please don't miss this opportunity, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you, Francis. There are some seats up front if you folks who just come in. For those who just came in, I want to state that we did have a sign-up sheet for the early folks. Once this is finished, we'll then take you one by one, first come, first serve kind of thing. Our next speaker is Frankie.
Good evening, council members. It's great to see you again. My name is Frankie, and I'm a resident of Troy. First, I'd like to also thank you for extending an invitation to the public to give input on Troy's future priorities. It shows us that you understand representative government, and it clearly signals that you want to work collaboratively with the public to address our community's needs together, and that's just fantastic. My biggest concern for Troy, and I know many others share this concern, is the lack of financial transparency and accountability from the current administration. Legally required financial reports have not been made available to the council or the public in a timely fashion. And time after time, the mayor has asked the city council to make massive financial decisions without enough detail to fully evaluate the proposals. It's clear that you intend to insist on complete and timely financial disclosures moving forward. But as we've seen, that offers no guarantee that the administration will actually comply. That's why I would like to see the new council consider imposing real-world consequences when the mayor and her staff fail or refuse to provide mandated financial information. Whether it's the application of administrative penalties like fines or censure for code of ethics violations, I want to see the city council holding the administration accountable. The lack of material consequences gives rise to the kind of boldness and arrogance we've seen in the past, and it weakens your authority in our system of checks and balances. We need the city council to provide strong oversight and reasonable sanctions when the administrative branch of Troy's government is out of legal compliance. I sincerely hope we can expect a commitment to that from this council in the future. Something I think every city, including Troy, needs is more youth participation in local government. I would love to see Troy work in partnership with area high schools and colleges to create a youth advisory council program that would allow young people in our community to experience firsthand how government works and to better understand their role as citizens. Many cities around the country have programs like this, and those local governments benefit from the insight, perspectives, and suggestions that the students provide. If Troy wants young people to be actively involved and invested in this community, we have to provide a mechanism for their voices to be heard. We have to consciously create a pathway to participation. And I'm hoping the City Council will take the lead on a collaborative effort to make that happen in the near future. And I don't want to take up too much time, so lastly, I'll of course express support for the passage of good cause tenant protections, the implementation of a residential occupancy program, or ROP, and the introduction of any other legislation designed to promote safe and affordable housing in Troy. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Frankie. Sean Collins?
Good evening, everyone. My name is, let's just go with this. My name is Sean, there's no brakes on this thing. My name is Sean Collins. I am a union representative and organizer with the Service Employees International Union, Local 200 United. I am also a delegate to and president of the Troy Area Labor Council, AFL-CIO. We are the voice for the AFL-CIO's affiliated unions in Rensselaer County. Our over 40 affiliated unions represent over 10,000 union members across Troy and Rensselaer County. I'm also a homeowner in Lansingburg at 118 7th Avenue. Many of you know me, so I like to be very direct about things. And so first I want to say that I think it's shameful that for the first meeting of this council, and despite it not having a formal business agenda, but it is a public forum and an opportunity for the council and the mayor's administration to hear from the public, I don't see the mayor. I don't see her deputy mayor. I don't see any representative from her office. And I think that's indicative, unfortunately, of what the next 2 years of your term will be. And I think that's really unfortunate. And I want to just make sure that it's clear on the record. I'm also, that being said, I'm very excited by the clear mandate issued last November by Troy residents demanding transparency, accountability, progressive action, particularly on good cause eviction protection legislation. When I last gave comment to Troy City Council, I said Troy voters would remember. A majority of them are tenants, and they would remember who stood with them and who didn't. They clearly did. Every one of those council members who voted against the interest of their tenant constituents and voted against good cause protections are no longer in office. Troy Labor Council is proud to have supported many of you who ran on pro-tenant, pro-worker platforms. Now with a complete majority and a mayor whose agenda has been resoundingly rejected, it is time to deliver on those commitments and to do so quickly. To repeat what I said when the legislation was first introduced and unfortunately voted down, as a trade unionist, I believe firmly that all working people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless in what capacity they work hard to earn often meager wages to support, to feed, to clothe, to care, to house themselves and their families. A roof over your head, food on your table, necessary care for your body and mind, time and place for leisure and rest, a place to create memories, to raise and love your children. These are basic but essential dignities that all working people are entitled to. Accordingly, as a union representative and a union member, I believe that employers should have cause, call it just cause or good cause, to deny working people the means to provide these essentials to themselves and their families. The concept of cause is not a foreign one to the city of Troy. Just cause is already the standard of disciplinary action, whether it be for an alleged minor infraction or more severe allegations leading to suspension or termination. It's currently afforded to Troy's unionized workforce. The right is enshrined in the collective bargaining agreements between the city and its various bargaining units. Good cause eviction extends the same principle of the just cause standard afforded to the city's workers to the city's tenants. If just cause provides an assurance that you are more the sum of your mistakes on the job, then good cause ensures that you are not simply a tenant who can be easily replaced if you demand accountability from your landlord or object to excessive rent increases. Good cause no more punishes landlords taking legitimate action against errant tenants than just cause prevents city managers from taking necessary disciplinary action against employees who violate its rules, policies, and procedures. It provides essential checks and balances in what is otherwise a fundamentally asymmetrical dynamic between the owner of multiple housing units and an individual who needs housing. So I urge the City Council to take immediate action to deliver on its election commitments and provide necessary protections for Troy's tenants. I also want to highlight some other opportunities that would benefit tenants and workers here in the city of Troy. I urge Troy City Council to take action on other legislative initiatives to improve the lives of working people in the city. Some examples of pro-worker legislation that the city could pass. Troy could pass a living wage ordinance that holds itself chiefly accountable and responsible by setting a higher rate of pay for its lower paid employees so that they can afford to better afford to live in the city of Troy. Through a living wage ordinance, it could and should hold its vendors like the Boys and Girls Club and other nonprofit contractors to the same standard, or only work with those vendors who are willing to pay their employees a living wage with such an ordinance. As far as I'm aware, the city has not opted into the New York's paid family leave insurance program. If this is the case, the council could and should compel the mayor to initiate negotiations with the city's various bargaining units to extend this important benefit to city employees. Our workers should not be forced to work instead of being home to care for or bond with their newborn child. PFL provides a vital safety net of income for one of the most precious experiences one can have. I took advantage of PFL when my son Ben was born, and despite the lack of sleep, it will be something that I cherish forever, and I was able to do so free of stress and guaranteed income while I was out for that month and a half. Troy's workers deserve the same. To support our city's working artists, the city could and should ensure that performers and musicians at city-sponsored events like Rocking on the River or whatever, I know that might be on the chopping block, but such events like that, that they are paid the regional scale set by the local American Federation of Musicians for their labor. The council could and should demand more direct participation in negotiations with the city's bargaining units. The recent agreements reached with the city and its CSEA and UFA units saw the city deny retroactive raises to the hundreds of city workers. Now, I want to be clear, those workers obviously democratically approved those agreements, but that position to deny them retroactive pay was undoubtedly a management suggestion, not a worker prerogative. And so in pushing that at the table. This denies them retroactive pay despite their tireless work on behalf of the city and its residents. It's insulting, and in my opinion, clearly demonstrative of the precarious financial situation our reckless mayor and her belligerent deputy have put the city in. This council has an obligation to be a better check on their management for the benefit of our city's workers. Lastly, Troy could establish a workers' rights commission. Such a commission would provide a venue to hold Troy's employers, particularly its largest employers such as Trinity Health, St. Peter's Health Partners, RPI, Russell Sage, Emma Willard, accountable for their anti-worker practices, which, having spoken to many of these workers at these currently non-unionized locations, are vast and numerous. Such anti-worker practices set a standard for what other smaller employees believe is acceptable when a low standard is being set by some of the wealthiest institutions in our city, who already exploit its residents with their nonprofit status. Therefore, you all pay for their fire, their police, their water. Not water, but they otherwise do not contribute to the emergency services and the other services they receive from the city. So this commission could serve as a venue to hold them accountable, despite that. So in conclusion, historian Daniel Walkowitz once described Troy as a worker city, a proud union stronghold where the standard of living was much superior in comparison to company town Cahoe. Passing pro-worker, pro-tenant legislation would be a positive step in reclaiming that mantle. Myself and the entire Troy Area Labor Council are ready to work with you on all such efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Daniel Morrissey.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Morrissey. I am a homeowner in the Sickaway neighborhood, and I'm the acting chairperson of the Sustainability Task Force, the Joint Task Force on Sustainability and Climate Smart Practices in Community Planning is the full name. We have made numerous approaches to the Carmela Mantello administration over the past year to be officially appointed as outlined in the city code. This new year and new council brings a fresh start, and we hope to foster a productive relationship with all of you and the administration going forward. Now, what have we been doing? We work in close partnership with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission, who provides technical assistance for the following programs. NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, runs the Clean Energy Communities Program. We identified clean energy uptake in Troy through 3 avenues over the past 2 years: electric vehicle purchases processed through Rensselaer County DMV, heat pump installations through contractor outreach and Department of Code Enforcement, and community solar signups through direct solar provider outreach. We achieved enough points to qualify the city for $837,000 of match-free grants and sought administration support without success. That's almost $1 million the city could have gotten for sustainable upgrades. New York State Department of Environmental Conservation runs the Climate Smart Communities program. We registered as a climate smart community by vote of the City Council in 2019 to adopt the CSC pledge and establish a CSC task force, which is the Sustainability Task Force. Currently, we are pursuing bronze certification, and examples of measures that help us to get to the necessary 120 points are tallying energy audits of municipal buildings, leased and owned, city coordination and support for the farmers market, installing LED streetlights, establishing a unified solar permit, complete street policy, and comprehensive plan with sustainability elements, which we do have. Actions which we must take to achieve bronze certification are to support a to appoint a CSC coordinator who can be city staff or myself as chair of the task force, use the Troy-specific portion of the recently completed regional greenhouse gas inventory from the CDRPC as our baseline carbon accounting method, and establish a municipal residential organic waste composting program. Another program from DEC is the Zero Energy Vehicle Grant Opportunity, sorry, Zero Emission Vehicle Grant Opportunity. This program would provide up to $500,000 in match-free funding toward one level 3 DC fast charger and or multiple level 2 chargers. This can be paired with the Joint Utilities Make Ready program that can add additional funding for groundworks and other relevant utility infrastructure to enable these chargers. Currently, we're working on a grant application for, currently we are working on a grant application with the CDRPC for a downtown fast charger for these electric vehicles, and that will be completed in mid-February. Administration support is hopeful. We have not gotten it yet. What do we want to do in the future? Well, the top priority is the bronze certification, but beyond this, we're looking to bring the abandoned municipal solar farm back online, and we're working with NYSERDA New York Sun program to get necessary info and contact information for the current owner after the installation developer went bankrupt some years ago. It would be great to have an active city council planning committee that would interface with our climate planning work. And pet priorities of mine include preserving the street trees along Congress Street by amending the sidewalks instead of killing these established and beautiful plant allies. Following from that, we must reestablish the street tree committee. It's been long dormant. Next, I hope we can establish legislation to mandate dark sky friendly light fixtures that will help limit light pollution for neighbors and non-human animals. Also, I believe we need to establish a city-run no or low interest renovation financing program for residential housing. In my role as Director of Sustainability at TAP Inc., the Community Design Center and nonprofit architecture firm here in Troy, we have supported low and moderate income homeowners to make their spaces more comfortable for 57 years. We're currently administering the New York State Department of Homes and Community Renewal program to promote accessory dwelling units throughout the city. The program is proving to be very difficult for income qualified clients to afford at the current extremely high construction costs. We need more housing. It's plain and simple. And this type of municipal financing program is being sponsored elsewhere in the state and has been extremely successful with very little need for loan loss reserve. This can be paired with a community land trust that will intentionally keep affordability in the housing sector long term. That's all I have tonight, but I look forward to working with you all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Daniel. Amani?
Good evening. My name is Amani Olubala, and I live in Troy, and I'm speaking on behalf of Troy for Black Lives. I'm glad to be here, grateful for the invitation. It makes me hopeful. I have a variety of points and perspectives I want to bring into the room, and I'm happy to be in conversation and collaboration with Common Council, City Council actions around them. I want to start here. Bike life is not a crime. Our young people deserve safety, dignity, and freedom, not fear. Right now, kids in Troy are scared to ride bikes because police violence has made movement dangerous. We're seeing young people body slammed, beaten, and treated like threats for riding bikes, and that's not public safety. That's punishment, control, and is dead wrong. Kids should be able to bike to their friends' houses. They should be able to skate. They should be able to exist in public space without wondering if tonight is a night that an officer decides to make an example out of them. If the city actually cares about youth safety, then we need bike lanes, skate parks, safe, accessible activities, places for kids to go that are not surveilled, criminalized, or policed into trauma. Because when cities fail to invest in young people, the police fill that gap and they do it with violence. That is a policy choice. And it connects directly to the budget. Year after year, Troy continues to heavily fund a police department that escalates situations, fails families in crisis, criminalizes children and homeless folks, and them anti-panhandler signs are gross. Police, like, right? Like, what? We got money for that, but not to take care of the people? No. A police department that shows no accountability when harm happens? No. Meanwhile, community-based solutions are underfunded or non-existent, even as the city continues to pay out settlements and legal costs tied to police brutality, misconduct, and civil rights violations. We are literally paying for harm instead of paying for prevention. So we're calling on real efforts to hold or reduce the police budget and reallocate those funds towards community-based safety. That means funding youth programs, violence prevention, mental health crisis response, housing stability, and spaces that actually keep people safe. Safety does not come from fear. It comes from stability, care, and resources. And one concrete step towards that is the creation of a dedicated fund to finance a community center in North Troy. North Troy deserves a space where young people can gather, move, create, and be supported without surveillance or punishment. A community center isn't a luxury, it's violence prevention, mental health support, youth development, and public safety. We also urge the city to study and implement proven crime reduction programs, including models used in cities like Baltimore that focus on prevention, interruption, and community trust, not mass arrests and brutality. There are models that work. What's missing is political will. Accountability matters. Troy needs a police review board with real power, including subpoena power, not just a symbolic board, not performative oversight. Right now, when harm happens, families are left with silence, closed doors, and no recourse. And that erodes trust, not just in the police, but in the entire system, and all of you here in front of me. We also need to talk about housing because housing is safety. Troy needs affordable, available, subsidized, accessible, and eviction-protected housing. Housing that people can actually live in, housing that accommodates disabilities and that doesn't disappear the moment someone hits a rough patch, because we are all facing some rough patches right now. When housing is unstable, everything else collapses. Mental health worsens, family stress increases, police get called into situations they are not equipped to handle. Again, this is not accidental, it's the result of policy choices. And we must address crisis intervention. Parents in the city, including parents of neurodivergent children, are terrified that calling for help during a mental health crisis could get their child killed. No parent should have to choose between silence and violence. Police are not mental health professionals. They are not trained to de-escalate mental health crises, neurodivergent crises, most crises, or trauma-based emergencies of any kind. We need non-police crises response, trained professionals, real de-escalation, and real care. And finally, we need to be clear that all of this connects to immigration and sanctuary. Right now, ICE is operating with near total impunity, detaining people in inhumane conditions, disappearing them from their families, my literal neighbors, and operating facilities that function as modern-day concentration camps. This is not about one incident or one headline, but I know we're all thinking about Minneapolis today. This is about a system that cages people, denies them and care, and treats entire communities as disposable. Troy is not currently a sanctuary city, and that is a shame considering the history of this land. In fact, this country has a history of active collaboration with ICE. It was like one of the first or few counties in this state that was working with ICE. That must change. A city that claims to value safety cannot collaborate with systems that terrorize our families and criminalize survival. Safety cannot be conditional. Justice cannot stop at a border. Troy has a history of people who refuse to accept injustice as normal. Harriet Tubman was literally up and down these streets. This is abolitionist ground. This is organizing ground. This is a city connected to that legacy. Folks who moved, regular people just like you and me, who moved to this region, helping to free people and change the course of history. And in our own time, the city has shown its power when thousands of people took to the streets demanding that Black lives be valued. Y'all remember that, y'all was there. We are not powerless. We are many and we are powerful. And this council has a choice right now to side with punishment and fear or accountability and collective liberation. History won't remember how comfortable this moment was. It will remember whether you met it with courage. I believe in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amani. That concludes those who've signed up. At this point, I would like to invite folks to come one at a time up to the podium, give your name and your place of residence.
By way of introduction, my name is Eric Spinner. For over 40 years, I've been involved in housing policy in New York State in a variety of capacities. I'm the founder and past president of the Marlin Tenants Association of Greater Flushing, New York City. I am the founder of the Bronx County, Queens County Tenants Coalition. I'm a former liaison to the New York City Rent Guidelines Board. I'm a counselor in the Community Stabilization Program, Office of the Mayor, New York City. I investigated fraud and corruption among government officials, New York State Inspector General Office, Office of the Governor. I represented ethical landlords and thousands of tenants in the courts of 9 counties across this state. I was Director of Violation and Complaint Abatement and the Chief Compliance Officer of one of the largest real estate holding companies, a landlord, in New York City, where I had responsibility for 100 high-rise buildings, 100 commercial spaces, and over 10,000 residential units. My relevant certifications include I'm a lead and asbestos federal supervisor renovation project director. I am an expert in mold, microbial, and mycotoxin awareness. My relevant experience as a forest ecologist concerns my expertise in hydrology, landscape dynamics, and soil and substrate science. I am proficient in the multiple dwelling law, the multiple residence law, the New York State Housing Maintenance Property Code, the Rent Stabilization Code, the Emergency Tenant Protection Act, and good cause eviction law. I stand before you here tonight to implore this city council to use every tool at your disposal to end the ghoulish nightmare that the tenants of this city have endured for too long. I stand before you here tonight as the voice of every tenant in this city who spends an exorbitant amount of their income, their Social Security and disability checks on excessive rents that are both evil and demonic. I stand before you here tonight as the voice of every tenant who lives with bed bugs, mice, roaches, and rats. I stand before you here tonight as the voice of every tenant who lives with falling ceilings, cracked walls, leaks, and broken appliances. I stand before you here tonight to beseech this council to usher in a new era in which the tenants are afforded a full panoply of rights that are enforced. I stand before you here tonight to demand that you dismantle the power structure that has allowed landlords and real estate developers to dictate housing policy in this city at the expense of the 35,000 plus tenants in our city. And I stand before you here tonight to present you with reasonable, tried and true reforms that have already been instituted throughout this state. Nothing I'm presenting for you tonight did I invent, but I've seen it work. I'd start off by saying this. We need to enforce the laws and regulations that the poorly written Troy City Charter and Code already have. For example, provide a history upon request pursuant to section 143.3C concerning violations in buildings. Right now, you've got to make a FOIA request. And if it affects one of the favored landlords of the city attorney and his cohorts, they deny it. And most people are not going to go through the process to make an appeal and head into the litigation that is involved in that is involved in doing that. It's expensive, it's costly, it's time consuming, and most people don't have the expertise. Ensure that the Director of Code Enforcement carries out his statutory duties pursuant to 176 of the code. And that includes cooperating, and I quote, with private agencies engaged in the study and improvement of housing conditions, which includes my organization. I am chairman of the Confederation of the Tenants of Troy. I'm the president of the Diamond Rock Tenants Association. Instead of working with me, the city has opposed me every single step of the way. Code revisions. Adopt the Tenant Protection Act of 1974 as amended. Adopt the good cause eviction law pursuant to real property law Article 6. Provide online and on-site complaint forms when a tenant makes a complaint. When you go to Department of Code Enforcement now, an inspector comes out with a Post-it note and writes down your complaints. Every single town, village, and municipality that's worth its worth in its name has a complaint form, except for Troy. Maintain a log of complaints. There's no log. Nobody knows if a complaint was filed or not. Institute a system of classification of violations by degree of importance. Send violation notices to the landlord and the complaining tenant. So there's follow-up. In most jurisdictions, violations are classified either A, B, or C. They're given a certain period of time to repair based upon the dangerousness. In our city, it's open-ended. They send a pro forma sheet that says you have 30 days, and there's no backup. There's no regulations providing that there is any backup. What has to happen here in Troy is the tenant has to continuously complain after the 30 days are up, and then the city comes out and gives the landlord another 30 days. And this includes even the worst serious violations. We don't have time for me to go into those. Amend Section 177 of the Landlord Registry to require that landlords that are LLCs disclose their names, their addresses, and their telephone numbers. Create a bad landlord registry list. Cease, and here's probably the most important one of all. Cease informal resolution of complaints existing at residential units and start documenting them. Right now, we had a violation if it's one of the landlords that our director of code enforcement, mayor, or city attorney are in bed with. They call up the landlord and say, listen, we may have to send somebody out. Can you fix this? And then eventually, they send somebody out after they know the situation has been repaired. And now you might say, well, that's good. You're getting the job done. But not when you have conditions that happen every week, like accumulation of garbage. You need to document it. And you need to document it for tenants also. Because when they're trying to get money back for overpaying their rent because they didn't get their services, the first thing our corrupt housing judge says is, did you report it to code enforcement? There's no record. And there's no record on purpose. Establish online interactive map that shows the structures with rental units and their violation history. If you go on the Rochester site, you can push a button on their interactive map and pop, the landlord's whole history comes up. We're talking about structures that have rental units, not everybody in a 1 or 2 family house. It's confined to that. Require a more flexible schedule when it comes to the code enforcement inspections, recognizing the fact that people work mostly 8 to 6 Monday to Friday. We have a Department of Code Enforcement that comes in late, goes home early, and doesn't work weekends. Require that the name of the so-called person on emergency duty is disclosed, who it is, when they rotate that person. We just have a website that says there is such a person, but I can tell you that they're not on and they don't respond. Mandate that code enforcement keeps permanent records. Provide that upon request of a tenant, either a plaintiff or petitioner, that a defendant or a defendant responded in any action involving their landlord in court, that a code inspector be mandated to appear if there's a record. Provide that upon request, a tenant, either a plaintiff, petitioner, defendant, or respondent in any action involving their landlord, be given a certified copy of all building and building code records that are available. Add a provision in our ridiculous arcane code that the hot water in all buildings, not just lucky ones like mine, that the temperature be kept at 120 degrees, like the rest of the civilized world. Provide, well, I'm skipping, add section 170, amend section 176F so that hot water is supplied at all existing sinks in a residential complex. Now think about this. In our complex and many other senior complexes, right now, our code only requires that hot water be supplied, number one, at 110, which most people, they're not even getting that, but at bathroom sinks, shower sinks, and kitchen sinks. So there's a community room in every senior center, right? So community room where people gather and do cooking. There's a stove, there's appliances. It doesn't require that. There's public policy regarding where hot water should be supplied. Not so I can stand up here and bother you with one more issue. The public policy is health and safety. So what, we don't need hot water in the community room? It's insane. So add that.
Eric, if we could just wrap it up, please.
I'm only getting started. I couldn't have used my time yet. Add a provision that the landlord abate the nuisance of mold. We have nothing that deals with mold. Provide snow and ice clearing regulations for residential housing complexes that do not abut a public walkway. Because a lot of our complexes are off the street, and there's no requirement that the landlord clear the snow off of the roadway, the parking lots, the stairways, the walkways, nothing. And if there's no regulation, I can tell you firsthand that it's not done until they feel like it. Prohibit the removal by landlord of reasonably posted signs related to legitimate tenant group or association activities. Provide that elevators are maintained in proper working order and have their annual inspections current. Provide that automated doors are maintained in proper order and that their annual inspections be current. Provide that walkways, driveways, and paths on premises of residential buildings be maintained in good repair. Right now, there's nothing about that at all. Mandate that the posting of signage identifying a property owner and management companies' names, addresses, and contact numbers for 10 or more apartments, for the complex of 10 or more apartments. Half of us don't even know who owns our building because the landlord registry is incomplete on purpose. Provide that the superintendent must live on the premises or within 1 mile of the residential complex with 60 or more units. That's done elsewhere. Provide a pro se attorney to tenants in housing court. Because you know, Troy has the second highest eviction rate of any county in the state, discounting New York State. Only Erie County beats us because they have Buffalo. Now, that's because of Troy. Now, is that because we have so many quote-unquote losers in this city, or is it because the system is stacked against tenants? Now, good cause eviction provides decent tenants with a justifiable belief that they can retain their apartments for the long haul, giving them motivation and incentive to be physically and psychologically invested in their communities. When tenants know that they have a stake in their communities, they typically exhibit more care and concern for those communities. Those communities will be safer and they'll be cleaner. By virtue of being assured of long-term tenancies, what will happen is you will find that our neighborhoods will flourish because people will have a concern for what goes on in them. The same principles are appropriate for rent increase regulations, which is probably more important, because standing alone, good cause eviction has not succeeded. It's been a distraction and a dilution of the kind of protections that tenants deserve and which are provided for in the ETPA, which also provides for good cause eviction. In those jurisdictions with only good cause eviction, and you can look this up, you don't have to believe anything I say, they've been able to use loopholes that skewer tenants with ever higher rent increases. Under the ETPA, this council would have the power to choose a rent guidelines board, which is empowered to decide the rents going up or down. And in Kingston, they lowered the rents by 15%. Unlike the good cause eviction law, ETPA involves many safeguards, including an administrative view for tenants to get a rent abatement instead of having to go to court, that results from depreciated services. The prohibition against the landlord changing lease terms when they give you a new lease, and additional code standards. Misguided policies in Troy are permitting tenants to be financially raped and has resulted in the tenants having to pay a cruelly disproportionate amount of their funds on rent, leaving them with little to no disposable income, or in many cases, no money to meet other needs. Here's the importance. The downstream effects of tenant household economic reality are that the city's pecuniary predicament gets worse each day. Think of it. Tenants are unable to spend money in local shops, restaurants, and other businesses. Their money is going into the pockets of a majority of whom are absentee landlords and city landlords of large residential housing complexes who are based outside of New York State. Compounding the financial abuse inflicted on tenants who deal with morally reprehensible increases is that they're forced to pay landlords thousands of dollars a month in rent, fees, and surcharges, and they're not getting the services and living conditions they deserve. Now, this is the equivalent of any of you going to the supermarket, filling up your shopping cart, and before you get to the door, the grocery clerk starts removing your items and then says you can go. It's clear that legislation focuses attention on issues. In a perfect world, that would suffice. This council can amend or otherwise institute the strictest tenant protections in the universe, but they will be ineffective unless we excise the cancerous tumors that comprise our top city executives, the city attorney, and the director of code enforcement. A culture has permeated down from these officials of rot. The pernicious capture of our political institutions by landlords and real estate developers, the thievery of our public treasury, and the misery inflicted upon tenants transcends party lines. From the machinations of multiple in-name only nonprofits like the Troy Land Bank to outright forgiveness of taxes or failure to impose and collect penalties, landlords and real estate developers have been exploiting the taxpayers. Stop giving away city land and structures to unaccountable, patronage-driven transaction schemes. The results from these so-called housing revitalization programs has been dismal. The average citizen gains nothing while board members get lucrative compensation packages. And I am wrapping it up. Instead of seeking to use existing law to derive funds from landlords who are literally racking up millions of dollars in profits and funneling that money out of our city, past mayors have raised your taxes, your water bills, and your sanitation costs to cover the budget shortfalls because government revenue generating priorities are out of whack. Hold landlords accountable by levying fines and collecting fees. It is amazing. Do you know that a residential housing complex with 100 units, let's just say 100, annually makes $1.5 million a year? And our city is worried about protecting their interest over the 36,000 tenants of our city. The director, I'll skip that because I know I can
Eric,
see
I'm
that this
sorry,
person.
but people are standing and waiting, and
Getting-
you've well exceeded your 7 minutes.
Let me close by saying this. The future viability of Troy depends on developing a magnetism that attracts people who want to live in this city and will need to attract businesses, and that involves assuring a welcoming climate to tenants so that business owners are assured that their workers can have livable and affordable housing. The council must steel itself, pun intended, against the opposition it's going to face from the special interest and Queen Carmela, who didn't even have the respect to show up here when she knew the public was speaking, because she doesn't want to face anybody here. I look forward to the day when our local government is no longer at the beck and call of every landlord and real estate developer who have their hands out for a sweetheart deal or government protection from the consequences of their own misdeeds. I stand before you here tonight with open arms and ask each and every one of you to work with me, my organization, and the tenants of this city to bring about the changes that are desperately needed so we can improve the lives of our tenants, preserve our housing stock, and concomitantly the population of the city. I stand before you here tonight to demand that you eliminate the stranglehold that landlords and real estate developers have maintained on the machinery of our government for too long. You must institute a new paradigm where tenants are no longer treated like serfs on the manor.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, folks, for standing and waiting.
Gosh, I have to come after that. Boy.
Tough act to follow, right?
Yeah, it is. Good evening. My name is Drea Lanza. I live on Fifth Avenue, just a block away. Since I moved into my house on Fifth Avenue in 2010, I've watched my neighborhood dwindle. Incidentally, I'm going to be talking about housing again, like many other people are. About 10 neighborhood houses have been demolished in my neighborhood. One large half-block development, the Maven Real Estate development, has been abandoned. Empty lots are everywhere, and street crime has become an everyday occurrence. Most of this neglect and deterioration is caused by absentee property owners. It is well known that to stabilize a declining residential neighborhood, it's important to have owner-occupied housing. Almost 2 years ago, my neighborhood presented a proposal to the city administration to stabilize and strengthen the neighborhood, building owner-occupied, moderately priced homes on a long-abandoned city-owned lot. TAP and Habitat for Humanity both have great track records in Troy, are involved and supportive of this process. However, despite repeated requests, there's been no response from the administration about allowing this project to be built on the city lot. We request that the City Council designate this city-owned land for Habitat or the Troy Community Land Bank, which is willing to work with Habitat for the project. We also suggest that the City Council convene the City Council Planning Committee to look at the status of all the Maven real estate property, another one of these developers, and include the neighborhood in discussing its fate. TAP is happy to lead a community design series focused on that land. The objective would be a combination of home ownership, low-rise rentals, home-based businesses, and thoughtful approaches to parking. Housing and affordability are two very important issues in Troy. I hope and expect that the City Council will recognize the importance of stable and thriving neighborhoods and support the neighborhood efforts. Thank you. And also, I want to say, as a landlord, I do support good cause legislation.
Thank you, Drea. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name's H.G. Warnder. Sorry, I'm just getting set up here. I see that there's a WAMC microphone, so if someone's here from them, WAMC, hire more Black people. So before I begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that the city of Troy is built on Schaghticoke, Mohican, and Haudenosaunee indigenous land. I'd hope to say some things directly to the mayor, but she isn't here. So I'd like to share a scenario with all of you, which is based on real experiences I've had since I moved to downtown. It's Tuesday evening and I'm looking for a spot to park. There's enough space in front of my apartment building for about 5 cars, but those are all taken. Fortunately, there's a spot on the other side of the street, but that side of the street can't be used Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I don't have a spare $210 to get my car out of impound, so I can't risk parking there. I can go up a block, but a block up and the streets swap. Left for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and right for Tuesday and Thursday. And can I park in the pothole-ridden lot behind my apartment? No, because it's permit parking. Even if I could park there, the lot is full of people visiting the local bars. What about the other lot in walking distance? Hasn't been plowed yet. So I go up to River Street Garage. I squeeze into a spot at the very top because there's nowhere else available. I walk across the dimly lit concrete floors with my keys in my knuckles. There are no cameras. I hope my car doesn't get broken into again. I have to walk out the main vehicle entrance because there is a gentleman masturbating in the stairwell. I nearly twist my ankle on a broken cobblestone in the crosswalk, but I make it okay, and when I finally get back to my apartment, there's a homeless gentleman sleeping in the lobby. I don't say anything to him, of course. I know how hard he has it. I just wish he didn't have to sleep in my lobby and that he could instead get some local services, but the services we do have are understaffed, underfunded, underappreciated, and overbooked. But at least there's a sign reminding me it's okay to say no to panhandlers. It's crazy to complain about drug and alcohol use when you have a DUI. But I check the local Troy community posts as I make myself dinner out of groceries that I have to get in Waterville or North Greenbush because we don't have a proper grocery store, you know. I see a post about there's another premium housing development coming to downtown, and I wonder if my rent goes up much further, where will I go? Do I have to move out of the first place I felt like I truly belonged? Because our city has an infrastructure problem, and it's not going to be solved by ripping chairs out of Proctor's. And it's not going to be solved by just having another ribbon cutting ceremony. And it's not going to be solved by giving Vic Christopher another liquor license. But I'd like to circle back to a point an earlier speaker mentioned, which is the issue of homelessness in downtown Troy. If you don't like seeing homeless people on the street, why not give them a home? Then you won't have to see them anymore, and you can go back to ignoring them like you do with the rest of us. Many of these resources need more attention than they get. They're not equipped to handle the volume that they get. There aren't even benches around Troy. There used to be benches outside of the atrium, but they were all torn down. And as many people know, Unity House just suffered a tragic fire that caused severe damage. And I really hope City Council is willing to show support. And I hope that we, the people of Troy, can come together to support our community. I would now like to read Thank you. I would now like to read a post from the Capital Region Sanctuary Coalition. I'm not affiliated with them, but I follow them on Instagram, and I thought that it was very important to bring this to your attention. The Capital Region Sanctuary Coalition has confirmed multiple sightings of confirmed ICE vehicles in Troy. There was one parked at the intersection of J Street and 5th. This was on New Year's Day, by the way. There was one driving on J Street, turning north on 6th Avenue, and then there was one on 106th Street, driving south onto 4th Avenue. Another one parked near 103rd and 5th Avenue before driving south, heading through J and 6th Avenue and entering 787 North, I know that the current administration is very concerned about the crime statistics in Troy. I hope that they will get this criminal gain, ICE, off of our streets, because as we know, ICE has killed before and they will kill again if we don't do something. I have a few minutes left, so I would like to just go back to a point from the gentleman that was speaking earlier about the issues with landlords and the housing protections that we have in the city of Troy. I have had issues with my own housing in Troy, and I feel like I have nobody to speak to about it. I feel like my own landlords whose names I don't know and whose the superintendent does not live on my property, which is an issue some people have mentioned, don't seem to care about me, and that really sucks. And I would like it if the council showed that they care about the people that live here by passing these protections for tenants. And last but not least, save the crows. Thank you.
What was that?
Hi, my name is TJ Kennedy, former city council member. I live at 9 Hawthorne Avenue. Before I jump into my topic of interest tonight, I wanted to emphasize or build upon what Mr. Morrissey spoke about earlier. For the Sustainability Task Force to be successful, I do believe it needs like strong institutional backing, probably a paid staff member, at least a city staff member that's designated to assist them, either as the chairperson or administrative staff. Similarly, if they wanted to focus on street trees, and related to my topic that I want to speak on, if the city could reinstate the Conservation Commission, the Environmental Conservation Commission, that could encompass street trees. When I was a city council member, I was trying to focus on advocacy for street trees, but I was laughed off as it was kind of like a pie in the sky or theoretical, but it actually is backed by science that more street trees do reduce violence. They do increase people's health and well-being psychologically, physically, and it also increases property values as well, increases biodiversity. And right now we have like a collapse essentially of pollinators and birds in the Northeast. So to that point, for the previous council over the past year, and an idea kind of that was conceptualized when I was on the council in 2018, but was derailed by other priorities. I would like to present the idea of designating the city's vacant land along the southern borderland, southern borderland in the Stowe Hill neighborhood as a nature preserve, partially because of that neighborhood not having access to any parkland trails. It would be a connector to a future riverfront trail, hopefully, that the county is supposed to be implementing for the past 11 years, but hasn't prioritized. And then, so yeah, when I presented this to the last city council, the council member was supportive, did come and hike, did talk about advancing it, but didn't ever actually follow up on his word. And the mayor was silent, kept blowing me off when I asked to speak about it or have a meeting. I didn't want to promote it publicly because I wanted to work internally. But, just like her presence today, the mayor is absent. So what I have here is a legislative support memorandum. It's a pretty good resolution that was passed around, how to implement, how to designate. I had a local ecologist, geographer, come and map out trails that already exist. The preserve is already informally used. And basically it's shown that vacant land that's when it's informally used leads to, right now we have dumping there frequently, almost a weekly basis, other illicit or legal activities harmful to the community and the environment. And when the state was seeking to replace the South Troy Bridge, they identified this area as 4 of 9 potential locations to relocate the bridge as an off-ramp that would, whatever you would imagine that would do to our community, but it would also route residents or route traffic out of the city of Troy, which would then result in less, ideally, or less sales tax revenue for the diverted traffic. So I have that presented. Hopefully you would all prioritize designating that land. It's also codified in the city's comprehensive plan. So I think that support is supportive enough. And then after you do that, the city has an awesome opportunity to promote ecotourism here, similar to what the city of Ithaca does. People travel from all over, probably the world, to Ithaca because they promote their region or their community as gorgeous, because they have all the gorges. So we also have gorges here, some big, some small, and they're kind of overlooked or hidden or disregarded, neglected. I think we have a huge opportunity there just to focus on parks and trails. If you reestablish the Environmental Conservation Commission, hopefully they could focus on that. But what you could do is we have 6 awesome waterfalls. one of which would be included in the Stowe Hill Nature Reserve. There's one in the Freer Park, Piscataway Falls, not very well known, but up above Brant Lake. There's one in Oakwood Cemetery that's pretty cool, easily accessible. There's the RPI Tech Park, which is just outside the city borders, but could connect to the Stowe Hill Nature Reserve. And then there's other waterfall challenges throughout the state and Northeast that have been successful. There's other similar hiking challenges, and these communities actually make it one of their prime reasons to bring people here. So I think it's just a huge missed opportunity, and hopefully, we can focus on ecotourism here like all the other cities do. And to that point, we do have the other opportunities for nature preserves, even on the northern border of the city as well. So that's all I have, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, TJ.
Good evening. My name is Michael Easterbrook. I am here as a resident and also as an advocate for Mount Ida Preservation Association, a 501c3 registered nonprofit. I first want to say congratulations to all of you. Welcome to Troy City Council, or welcome back, I guess. I wanted to offer a set of priorities and ideas that I think can help make Troy a better place. But I'm going to start with Mount Ida. If you haven't heard of Mount Ida Preservation Association, we care for Mount Ida Preservation Hall. It's a historic former Episcopal church overlooking the Post and Kill Gorge, one of the great waterfalls that we have here in Troy. And we're working to restore and reactivate this building as a community arts service and gathering space. We just completed our first ever season of program where we held concerts, theater, and other fun programming to engage the community. We hold brunches, we hold weekly food pantry, public meetings, neighborhood events, all while preserving Troy's history in this 150-plus-year-old building. I'll let you know that we're looking for funding opportunities for a variety of repair projects to the building itself, including exterior masonry, repair of the eaves and slate roof, and plaster work. We also have a vision to develop the lawn and the edge of our property, which overlooks through an overlook deck, and that views the entire Post and Kill Gorge. We have historic pictures of the mills that used to be along the Post and Kill Gorge that we could set up as kiosks, and we would intend to use this space as a public park. In your tenure, if you find something that comes along that makes you think of that space that would be a good way to pursue that project, please let me know. And any other way that you might think of Mount Ida and how we could work together, I'm excited to do so. So that's kind of my Mount Ida bit. And so I'll go into my recommendations and thoughts for the city. I want to make 2 book recommendations. If you haven't read Strong Towns by Charles Moran, or Death and Life of American Cities by Jane Jacobs. Excellent reads, and I draw a lot of what I'm going to talk about from those. So first, on transportation, I believe in a freedom of transportation, which is really just a framework meaning that we maintain infrastructure friendly to pedestrians, cyclists, cars, and public transportation. In practice, that means narrower car lanes where appropriate, protected and connected bike lanes. That's super important to me. I bike around. It's my primary means of transportation at the moment. Safer intersections, those sorts of things. It also means supporting the CDTA and advocating for frequent and reliable service. There's a lot of resources out there for how to implement these things in reasonable phases and as opportunities present themselves through infrastructure projects like Route 2 that was recently discussed. There's a huge opportunity there that I hope doesn't get missed. And we have a great local organization, Capital Streets, extremely knowledgeable group. I highly recommend that you employ their knowledge set to implement infrastructure projects around transportation in Troy. On city growth, we've heard a lot about housing, so I'm briefly going to touch on that also. We always want to encourage more housing. It means lower rents, more affordability, greater mobility for tenants, and pressure on landlords to improve material conditions. And I say this as a landlord myself. Not all housing is created equal. So when we see opportunities from developers, we need to incentivize and encourage multifamily homes and mixed-use development through our zoning policy, while limiting single-family home development and very large apartment complexes. Where apartment complexes are going to be built, we need a sensible height limit within the downtown and to consider historic character within the city, even if it's just a brick facade. To that end, I think we should expand historic district designation to preserve Troy's identity and where it makes sense. Also, in the process, in general, I advocate for civil discourse. So we don't want to treat developers as the enemy. We need homes. They need to make a little their money on the project, but there needs to be a good faith discussion between the parties. So if we do give breaks, we got to make them work for it to create a cityscape that we all are happy with. I'll also recommend, we've heard about TAP, use TAP. They're great. They're going to be great counsel on any project coming through that you have to vote on. Briefly on parks and public spaces, invest in our parks. Very simple. They're important infrastructure. They're not just luxuries. They impact health, community, and quality of life for the residents. They need to be invested in. As an East Side resident, I'm interested in pursuing improvements to Prospect Park, Kinloch Park, Ida Lake, the Poston Kill Gorge. And again, another partner is working with Hudson Taconic Lands on projects like the Poston Kill Benz Park. On governance and planning, I'd love to see Troy adopt some studies from the Strong Towns book. I recommend conducting and publishing a review of infrastructure obligations, including the cost of service per square foot compared to tax revenue that we generate on that land. We need to know what we can truly afford to maintain and where growth actually pays for itself. This work could be expedited by partnering with local universities or with nonprofits like Local Data Stories to compile this data and make those insights public and accessible. In general, you've maybe noticed there's an enormous amount of capacity within our citizens. I can tell from the people speaking tonight, nonprofit organizations and informal community networks. The city and you shouldn't be afraid to tap into those and strengthen those relationships. It'll empower both of you, both the communities and the city. So I want to encourage you to work with nonprofits and citizens and connect through letters of support, introductions, and convening meetings. On budget, again, reiterating what others have voiced, I'm concerned about the budget as announcements for new multi-million-dollar projects continue to come through. I just want to know where that money is coming from, especially if we are planning to take on new debt to fund that. I don't want to necessarily, blanket shy away from big set spending, but we do need financial transparency to make responsible decisions. In line with that, I do support public safety, but we need to examine what we're getting for what we spend. The 2026 police and fire budgets were a combined $55 million, which is 62% of city revenue, or 72% of Troy's tax revenue before state aid. Just a very large percentage. And so I think we just need to ensure that we can square that spend with our ability to complete the responsibilities that the city of Troy has to maintain service and improve infrastructure throughout the city. I want to encourage that the city build true maintenance planning into the budget if it isn't already, in the form of dedicated reserves for infrastructure repair, so we aren't surprised when aging infrastructure breaks. Briefly on Proctor's Theater, I'm not super mad to see the city invest in something historic and beautiful. I feel a much greater sense of pride with a public office in Proctor's than I do in the Headley Building. I think it says something about Troy values and preserving history and clever reinvention. We just have to make sure it's well executed, that we don't get ripped off. If we're going to do the box in a box, it should be a glass box, because otherwise it defeats the point. On civic collaboration, to the extent possible, you'll have to work with the opposition party to accomplish shared goals, in so much that you have to do that. Goodwill matters. You will disagree, but you can continue to build trust through competence and fairness. Try very hard not to take the very obvious rage bait that you will inevitably encounter. It's okay to respond, but I think there's value in our representatives presenting professionally in discourse, both in person and online. with that respect. And then finally, on community engagement, I encourage you all to be proactive and hold meetings that rotate through your communities and community centers and neighborhoods within your district, and create a way of making yourself available to the community, both online and in person. And final closing thought, focus on data and tangible outcomes, safer streets, more housing, healthy tax base, and a city that takes care of what it has. Don't get distracted. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, I'm gonna count myself in a minute here. I'm gonna time myself. My name is Noah. I'm a resident of downtown Troy. I came here for one reason, really. I texted Councilmember McKee about this before she even came in office, about the benches that someone else mentioned on Atrium, near the Atrium between 3rd and 4th Street near Broadway. I love those benches. Oh, okay. Here, I was gonna do this as my introduction. I don't represent anybody. All these people represent nice organizations. I'm just a guy in Troy. I love Troy. I'm a big fan of Troy. And I love those benches too. I used to text my friends about sitting on those benches. So when they disappeared, I was very sad. I had the opportunity to speak to the director of communication or something, Alex Horton, for the Mantello administration. He gave me his email. I emailed him twice. He didn't respond. I put in a FOIA request and they said they had nothing. So either they lied to me or they have really bad records. So you said you'd look into it. Here I am holding you accountable to that, I guess. I guess I'll use my time as a data point to say support good cause, support most of the other things other people are saying. I got 4 seconds, so thank you for being here. I'm excited for office hours, by the way. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Noah.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
My name is Jessica Ashley. I am the president of the Rensselaer County Justice Center. Back in September, the former council members sat in the very seats that you're in, and we spoke about ICE and some of the problems that we were having in the city. And they boldly said publicly that none of the things or the concerns that we had were happening, that ICE was not abusive, they were not arresting people, they were not bothering people that were legitimate, legal, none of the above, harassing families, standing at the doors, and people were afraid to leave their homes and whatnot. They denied everything. And I'm speaking about this because the shooting, all right, let me correct myself, the murder that took place on yesterday, it saddens me, but it does not shock me. The writing was on the wall and it is still there, but now the writing is bloody. If we continue to take a passive approach to ICE, that is an illegitimate enforcement, Gestapo, a group of thugs that have been given badges. If we don't speak out and if we don't take a stand, they will do worse. The writing is on the wall. And so I am just here to say again, as government officials, please don't allow yourselves to fall into the same yes sir pit that the rest of them fell in. This is our city. They don't pay our taxes. They don't pay for our jails. They don't pay for anything. And they don't dictate to us in this city what they are going to do and not going to do. I know that you don't have any control over the county jail, but we do have say over our local police. And there is nothing that our local police that we're paying for should be doing to help these criminally minded individuals to continue to violate our community, our city, and inevitably do more harm than good. So with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hello, I'm Natalie Jabot. Own a home on 2nd Street in the South Central neighborhood, just north of the canal. And there's a part of the Riverside Neighborhood Group, and we've been pursuing a project that you may or may not know of, Post and Kill Place, that was proposed back in 2017, and would be a mixed income housing project. And everything seemed to be a go with this project, but we have a notorious salt pile that got in the way, and the state of New York then rescinded its grants and support for the project. Anyway, it's a brownfield area that Community Builders was involved in remediating and so forth. Anyway, so not exactly an attractive lot to the standard developer. And so we as a neighborhood were pretty excited about this project because it was returning an area to residential use. So that block, a census block, used to be all residential buildings. And now there are only 6 residential buildings on this block, and the rest of the area is vacant. Anyway, it's come to our attention that the rezoning as part of the comprehensive plan had changed that zoning, which used to be industrial residential, which is a concept that does not exist in the US, thank God, anymore, but was turned to, I think they called it business development, which now precludes any residential development on the parcel. It also means that the housing that's there, that exists and have been there since, I don't know, 1890 or something, that all those homes, if somebody was to have a complete loss of their property, that they couldn't just automatically rebuild their home. And then that brings into question whether or not they can continue to have homeowners insurance. I mean, it just, it's kind of leads one thing into another. So it's our feeling that the rezoning was intended to be an improvement, that there was no malice here. It was just an oversight. And so we, a bunch of neighbors and I, signed a letter that we submitted to the council and to the mayor back in October, and we haven't heard a thing about this. And so we're concerned because, like so many people have voiced tonight, we recognize that there is a need for mixed income housing. We cannot focus all our attention on, super luxury apartments when a lot of us can't afford that. This is the reality on the ground. We need housing that gets us away from squalor and the other problems that are a legacy here in this city. So anyway, I would be glad to submit the same letter and information to you all again. But it's our hope that this whole issue will be revisited and ultimately that a rezoning classification correction could be made for this particular parcel. Again, so that it not only allows future building of residential housing, but also protects the current owners of residential housing right now. So thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time.
And yes, if you would resubmit that letter, that would be appreciated.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Jessica Bennett. I live in Lansingburg. I think it's so heartening that this council is choosing in one of its first meetings to have an open and transparent listening session. I think it really bodes well for the future of the city for at least the next 2 years, and I'm grateful. I have a few things I'm going to kind of scatter on and then focus on a few things. I'm in favor of the ROP program. It's something that the mayor had piggybacked on her opponent, Nina Nichols, proponent of the ROP program, but we haven't seen anything for the last 2 years. I hope it's something that the council can make a priority. This feels like an odd one, but it's actually something that municipalities around the country are adopting. I would like to see a prohibition of latex paint on brick facades. We have a ton of brick housing stock that's all over 100 years old. The latex paint does not allow for any sort of breathing, and it's literally causing the brick underneath to crumble. I know that's an odd left field one. I'd also like to see the zombie property program reinstated. It was wildly successful. It more than paid for itself. Lord knows we can't drive down a single block here in Troy without seeing a zombie property. We need that back occupied, paying taxes, and also inhabited by people that care about the city. I have real concerns and reservations about the seeker process for the Freer Park Pavilion from the December 30th meeting, and whether or not it was performed properly. Regardless of the type of action, seeker requires that plans and records be made available upon request 24 hours, at least 24 hours prior to the meeting, and that was not the case. If needed, I can provide a recording of a call with our city clerk where she stated she did not even have the plans, and that was at 3 o'clock before the meeting at 7 o'clock. So I have no idea what the legal pathway is for that, but we can actually really pull that apart. I think there's also real question of whether actually it is an unlisted action or a type 1 action, which would require a lot deeper environmental review, considering that it's on a parcel of extreme, a ton of acreage, Fair Park. Enough with the weird stuff. I would like to see the creation of an urban forestry committee. With the creation of a modern tree survey, I know one was done some years ago. It can advise on the management and maintenance of existing and new trees on public grounds, promote the value of trees, proper tree care, and sound urban forest management practices. Value can't be overlooked here. Proximity to forested green space, according to HUD, increases property values between 3 and 9%, with the median household income in Troy of being $57,000. Residents literally cannot afford to lose green space and have their property's values go down. It also cools urban areas up to 10 degrees. With climate change and all of us having skyrocketing energy costs, we all need these savings. Trees provide considerable stormwater and pollution control through rainfall interception, intensity reduction, stormwater infiltration, and uptake. To put that in perspective, we have over 30 stormwater overflow sites in the Hudson where the minute we get a little bit of rain, it immediately goes into the river, which sadly downstream many communities then take their drinking water from. We are consistently on a monthly basis fined by the DEC, and there is absolutely no resolution in sight. So I know it sounds like I'm kind of being a tree hugger hippie here, but there's real dollars and cents between everything I'm putting forth here. We really can't afford to lose any more urban canopy. That said, everybody that's come before me who has spoken about ICE, I'm in complete agreement with. We need to stop them. But here are some concrete things we can do as a municipality, as a council. I'd like to see ordinances passed that restrict police cooperation, that refuse data sharing, to limit access to city property. And if there is a legal pathway, to prohibit Troy police officers for working for ICE. I understand that 287G is a county agreement, but the police of the city of Troy, who are paid for by the city and our tax dollars, are charged at least with serving and protecting the people of Troy, and they cannot serve two masters. And that's it for tonight. I wish you the greatest of success, because when you are successful as a council, all of Troy will win. So good luck.
Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Sorry, Jess. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. I know most of you. I'm Rhea Drysdale. I'm a resident of Troy, up in Fair Park. Do I have to give my address? We're good. Okay. I'm a business owner and have had my business here. Founded it in 2009. I'm a mother of 2 children who go to School 14 and the Troy Middle School, and I'm currently the president of the Board of Trustees for the Troy Public Library. I would like to thank Director Tim Ferkel, who already spoke about the library, so I'm not going to touch on that right now, but I hear you did a great job. And I would like to encourage this council to continue to work closely with the library in the in the coming years for all the opportunities, services, and funds to the community in Troy and Lansingburg as well that are sorely needed, which I think our budget vote really demonstrates. People want that library and they do want it to stay open. I also want to start by saying thank you and congratulations. Each of you worked really hard and the city showed up in full support of your platforms and values. This is an exciting time for our city and I'm hopeful that you'll be able to prioritize and make actionable progress on as many of the issues that you're hearing tonight as possible. And I actually feel for you because that means you have to take everything that you're hearing tonight and put it together and prioritize. And that's going to be the hardest part because you can't make everyone here happy. But I hope that you can make good progress over the next couple of years. I'm here tonight on behalf of the residents of Freer Park. Almost everyone that I'm in connection with is a parent, so they were not able to come. They have other conflicts with meetings and Girl Scout troops and other things. But we have a number of questions, and Jess already touched on it. The pavilion, I don't personally know where that came from. It was not on our list of requests when Freer Park asked for new playground equipment. And what we have is sorely lacking and a pain point. I know that golf course costs a lot of money, but I don't personally use it. I do know dogs like to walk on it, and then we get yelled at for that. So I would like to know a lot more about that $6 million bond for the pavilion, how that's going to affect taxpayers, what's going to end up happening with that. Do you plan to involve the community at all in discussions about all of this funding, what's happening with the ARPA funding? I don't even want to talk necessarily about the pub and the tent that they erected for, what was it, $1,600,000. But I did have my family almost get run over by a car leaving there when they decided to leave the parking lot by driving over the grass and almost hit my family while drunk leaving the pub. So lots of questions about the pavilion and the parks and everything else, and I hope that you will involve the community in that process and solicit ideas from us, the people who actually use that park on a regular basis, as well as everyone who comes up from North Central or other areas to use it. I'd like to see the city renegotiate with the universities in our community to receive fair compensation for the ample city services and benefits that you provide. I'd like to see the council revisit the PRRC recommendations provided by this council's own committee from the Reimagine Troy Justice Services Working Group. It's a mouthful. We formed that, and a number of us that were on that working committee are here tonight. We know that the action items from that and all the recommendations that we pulled together from multiple groups were ignored. And I believe the only action item that was implemented was hiring 4 additional police officers, when the entire point was police reform and reinvention. It was an absolute absurd circus that resulted in no tangible benefits for our community other than some more cops downtown. I also want to ideally see them amend their use of force. I know it's the police department, not necessarily you, but I've already raised this point. They said that they are in alignment with 8 Can't Wait. They are not. They still are not. That was a lie. And we can point very easily to their policy and show that. It's unfortunate timing that I'm standing here after getting re-traumatized by watching a community member be shot while protecting others, trying to flee ICE. Why is it traumatizing? Because we already know in this city that we've murdered Edson Thevenin and that we've assaulted other members of the public, mostly Black and brown residents in the city of Troy. There is a long history of systemic racism, redlining, and class division, and I know all of you understand and advocate for improvement with that, and I'm hoping that you can continue to do that and put real work to that. Please try to keep the business of the city as fair and transparent as possible. There are going to be a lot of conversations that we are not privy to, and there's going to be a lot you can't talk about. So please continue to advocate for people over property, no matter what comes up. Also, what's happening with radio encryption? This is an old topic, but when they decided to fully encrypt the radios and we, the people, no longer had access to them, there had been a note that there would be an offer for an encrypted channel that could be given to the media and to certain community advocates like myself, who at the time were working with the community for fire response. I don't believe that has ever gone anywhere. What is the status of the skate park that had a full discovery process and plan proposed years back? It was amazing. Where did that go? They were industry leaders. They came, they spoke. There was a full survey and a beautiful proposal. And that is what the city needs, and that is what the community needs, especially right underneath the Color City Bridge when people are not able to safely bike or skate in the community. I want to reiterate what others have already said, the importance of crime reduction programs that work in cities like Baltimore or the Chicago Crime Lab, where there are many statistically sound outcomes and successful programs within urban communities. We need more bike safety, safer streets for kids and families. There are one-way streets in South Troy with bike lanes, but you go up to North Troy and everything is two-lane with no bike lanes. This feels like a systemic failure of infrastructure and something that could be easily improved. The last time I was here was for Harbor Point and the absolute mess that it was to watch the city and developers argue over accountability. I know Eric is here. While I was here for that, a mother came to speak the same night about her child's bedroom whose window had been blown out after the building next door, which was a derelict building, collapsed and blew out the building and the child's window. And what I would point out is that I brought my children here that night, and it was so kind of sad because my son goes, "Oh, Mom, that's my friend from school." And I had to sit here with one kid, my kid, the privileged kid up in Freer Park, with his friend whose building on 4th Street had just been endangered. Well, the derelict building that was ignored with code for years collapsed next door. And I believe a city council member was in that building when it collapsed as well. Of course, I support good cause eviction, affordable housing, stronger code enforcement, the ROP program, improved labor conditions, benches for the public, trees. I didn't know that I'd have to advocate for that. But while we're on the subject, maybe the city can issue a PSA on the invasive and dangerous species that most of the 1940s homes landscaped with that are destroying our natural forests, like the Japanese barberry, and a public restroom, perhaps, so that the library isn't the only public restroom. The parking racket with local auto repair shops is absolutely wild. My dad came to visit and had his car towed the second night because he didn't understand the signs. Welcome to Troy. Lastly, F-ICE. Our city needs to find some of that Minneapolis and Chicago energy. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, Rhea.
Hi, my name's Candace. I grew up in Troy, and between having, split custody parents, I've lived in a number of places in Troy. I lived in Lansingburg for 17 years. I've lived in South Troy, Little Italy. I lived on Pauling Ave near Congress Street. And I currently live downtown near the Music Hall, which is my second apartment downtown. I would just like to reiterate, I've heard a lot of people say tonight about good faith eviction and holding landlords accountable. Growing up in Lansingburg especially, I went to Lansingburg High. I watched that area of the city fall apart. It grew more and more neglected. There was nowhere safe, as other people tonight have mentioned, for children and teenagers to exist. And for that, I would like to give a shout out to the Troy Library and the Lansingburg Library, because that was one of the only places that me and my friends in Lansingburg were able to go after school, which, as we know, the children's area needs to be repaired, and hopefully that's able to be done soon. I watched my mom, who raised me and my sisters on low income, be pushed out of South and downtown Troy between negligent landlords who live far away from Troy, whether it's New York City or beyond, who buy up all the properties and never come to here. I watched her argue with them in court, where they showed up on Skype or Zoom or whatever it was, or be pushed out by rent raises that we just could not afford. I watched my grandmother, after owning a house in Lansingburg, could not keep up with the rising costs and no longer lives in Troy at all. Even our current apartment is in a building which is owned by a company not based in Troy and operated by a superintendent who does not live in or near our building. And in my own time renting, we've experienced numerous violations and safety hazards that we have little or no way to report or have resolved after our superintendent has ghosted my numerous emails or phone calls about our collapsing ceilings, which the gentleman earlier happened to touch on. All of this is to say that I would like to see the city I've grown up in and currently live in make any attempts to care for and keep the people that live in it, and keep them safe, which I do believe includes keeping ICE out of our city and restructuring Troy's police to better serve our community, whatever that looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace.
Good evening, everyone. Stephen Maples, South Troy. First of all, I just have to, I think I've probably, said this to most of you, but I just have to take a moment to get it on record that I am thrilled that this council is bringing some balance to our government, and it's gratifying knowing that things are going to have a little bit of a different change, a little bit of a different attitude, some accountability, such as with the topic of conversation, the Freer Park Pavilion that the prior council was only given a financial plan, which, if you'll recall, was the one thing that I kept saying that we should get for the new city hall proposal. The one thing that I was asking for couldn't be produced, but it's the only thing that was produced for that project. So I'm just going to leave that there and move on to my remarks. I'm going to focus on transportation today because that is my profession. So here goes. Troy's heritage as a dense, walkable city with bustling life and commerce and culture, we really lucked out. We have an amazing advantage here in this part of the world, and specifically Troy, because we did avoid a lot of the urban renewal of the middle of the last century, which means that we really have an unbelievable place to start from. We have a lot of that built environment that is so excellent. But we've turned our back on some of the basics that make any city successful. We've forgotten the most basic form of transportation in any city that is enjoyable to be in is walking. Over time, we've let the most basic elements of our fundamental mobility fall into disrepair, and we've prioritized spending money on things that erode the basis for success and livability. We've begun the process of correcting course in the recent past, but we've also seen the inadequacy of those efforts. We still see our neighbors that use wheelchairs and mobility devices forced into the street because the sidewalks are buckled and hazardous, even in the wealthier parts of town. Or because some sort of work is happening that obstructs the sidewalk, but we think so little of our neighbors, both disabled and not, that we don't provide accommodation that isn't just a sign that says sidewalk closed, as if doing so isn't both dangerous and wildly insulting, when just a few barrels or barriers, some tape and ramps could easily be deployed. We see our neighbors walk in the street because of our system of clearing snow and ice from sidewalks is utterly useless. We don't replace street markings that safely organize the street in a timely manner, sometimes going for years without replacement. I'm looking at First Street in South Troy. We haven't joined most of our neighboring and peer cities to adopt a lower speed limit or engaged with a process of redesign of our streets to complement and passively enforce a lower limit. We don't enforce state law that says that requires vehicles not be parked within 20 feet of a crosswalk, nor do we follow industry standards that use design to passively enforce this law as well, thereby making nearly every intersection in the city way more dangerous than it needs to be. It is keeping these sightlines clear, a practice known as daylighting that is credited with that New Jersey City credits with going more than a year, in some international cities going even longer, without a single traffic death, not a single one. It's proven to make our streets safer for everyone. We make changes that are not considering our streets' most vulnerable users, like replacing stop signs with red lights in areas that don't warrant them, leading to more speeding and aggressive driving. We leave light, sporadic, and likely inequitable enforcement of our traffic laws, leading to distrust, resentment, and less safe streets. We don't adopt a comprehensive manner of doing that. In short, we have a haphazard approach to our streets. We don't approach our interventions with any systemic process. Worse, we aren't planning our streets to work better, more safely, more productively. We have no vision for our streets. No big ideas like pedestrianizing Broadway from the approach to Monument Square. As a result, we are in more danger from traffic violence, suffer from less walkable and vibrant streets, experience less economic growth, and an overall less sustainable city. The good news is that we have good, safe, proven ideas that can address nearly all of these issues. Several of us are already working on formalizing some of them for your consideration. Troy has an incredible historical legacy in its built environment. Let's celebrate that and amplify this advantage that we have to create a safer, more vibrant, more successful, more sustainable future. I look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Hey, everybody. My name's Liv. I run support groups for Black moms specifically. I don't have long list of credentials or even knowledge in, Section 8 of all, whatever. But I do want to speak from a part that I didn't really hear come up. I heard it reiterate by one of my comrades, but my son, came up here because he likes to run and elope and stuff, and even into the city of Troy. And he tried to run up here while this man was given a 12-page proclamation. But he is such a good kid. If you'll see him, he's right back there. And there's a lot of parents that I'm seeing with special needs children, and I don't really see the community really making it like elope safe. And I am fearful of my son as he walks the streets, because, okay, we can only stop, traffic or, moving around, but I have yet to see like a profound or a group of special needs moms coming together, or like the city making that a safer area. I know you got a lot on your plate, but to say, if I could say anything, it would be like, make it a safer place. I am quite scared of the future for my son, but I will do anything. And if y'all have anything to offer, I'm down for that, to make it safe for my son. I know that sounds selfish. It's not just for my son, it's for people like me who have children like mine, for those who needs advocates. And I know there's like ARCs up here, and that's cool at a certain age. But my son did do a state thing by getting into OPWDD. And I just speak more life into more places that can offer stuff for kids who has sensory issues. The world is such a scary place. I'm not scared. I don't think I have a choice to be at this time, but I am offering any type of support. You can hit my line. I'll give you my number right now. If we can just make it a safer place for people who are nonverbal or with neurodivergency issues, because it's true. Like, I've seen a lot of horror stories come up where people shoot first and ask questions later and never really know a kid or what a kid's going through. Like, I want to reiterate a reformed crisis intervention team that's not like with a black and blue badge, something from the heart. And I know y'all have somebody who knows somebody or relatives that has some type of ailment, talking to the crowd too. And I just speak into life that we come together and make it appropriate, and not like, if I am not asking for too much. But please meet me anytime on the street. If you see my son running, and if you don't see me with my son, please, hold him close. I see your names. I have photographic memory. Like, we're all cool now. So, yep, that's about it. And I hope y'all have a good night and take care.
Thank you, Liv.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gigi Sweets, and I'm here mostly because I didn't hear anybody else pick up this topic and bring it here, even though it was mentioned online. In 2021, my son and I fled our home due to domestic violence. We spent about 2 years almost traveling back and forth across the country, literally, I think we did 10 trips within that period of time, with our futures being completely unknown, unstable, and without an idea for what a forever home looked like. In September of 2022, I rolled my car through Monument Square. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was sitting right next to 518. And I looked ahead of me and I saw this, beautiful statue to the side and this art center in front of me and a bookstore and mom and pop shops everywhere. And I continued to kind of go through the city a little bit. I found Unity House. I found so many things. Sorry, I'm nervous up here. But
Take your time.
Thanks. But it felt like home. It was in that moment in Monument Square that it felt like home. So I did what any person who doesn't know anything about real estate does. I went onto like Zillow, and put in an inquiry about a house that I had seen there up in Lansingburg, which is where I reside currently. Different house now, but same area. And 2 months later, I closed on a house. The biggest thing that made me love this city was being immersed in culture, seeing musicians having cased instruments walking through the street, hearing live music every which way I turned. And it was always something different. I could turn my ear to the west and hear jazz, and I could turn my ear to the right and hear music from the music hall actually coming out. I took my son to go see Vivaldi there. This is not exactly the normal kid here with, some very diverse tastes. So obviously I have to cater to that and have a wide array of genres available. But it was that made me fall in love with this city. And I started going around to all of these different music venues and meeting the musicians and hearing all of the beautiful life that they bring to this city. And then last year, I found out about this ordinance, the sound ordinance that came into play. And I think originally when I heard about it, it was at either Twisted Fiddler, 518, or whatever it was. And we were told it was 9 o'clock. All of a sudden, we had to shut off the music and nobody could have anything going past then because they were going to be fined. Well, it begs the question, how did this come to be? It came to be without a vote. It came to be because our mayor decided so. It was completely asinine to think that in a mixed district for commercial and residential use, our mayor catering to the residents who expected businesses to not conduct themselves as the businesses that they were, would go ahead with that. Not to mention the fact that fiscally speaking, if you look at bars and restaurants, which is actually part of the industry that I am in, you have to take into consider all of the revenue that they bring to this city. They bring in money from sales tax, they bring in property tax, they bring jobs, they bring art because they're having these musicians come in and actually inject life and culture into this place. And just to give you some fun facts here, in the downtown district, you have property that has $10,000 to $30,000 worth of property taxes due every year. That's a nice little grip of change. And on top of that, you have 10 to 15% of the sales tax collected in Troy from them. Now, a lot of people have mentioned here that we have been less than diligent when it comes to keeping our records up to date. There is a lack of verified businesses within Troy that fall under the restaurant and bar umbrella. It was impossible to find accounts. And given it is the industry, they have a high turnover rate. I understand all of that. But even ballpark, come on now. It is said from multiple sources, some out of date, some not, but the average looks like there's somewhere between 180 to 237 places that contribute towards this just in our downtown area. The national average, because we couldn't find information for Troy specifically, was that 11 to 13% of restaurant sales occur after 9 p.m. Now, I understand the ordinance now is at 10, but at that point in time when it was first initiated, I believe it was 9, or at least that's what we were told. 50% on the national average of bars generate 50% of their income after those hours as well. So by reducing the influx of people into these establishments, you are severely limiting these businesses from being able to function as they should. You're incredibly just damaging the infrastructure and what draws people here. I have just seen recently that Albany has announced that they want to become a 24/7 city because of the fact that there are so many benefits to it when done right. Given I don't think any of us here really want to live in Las Vegas, we probably would if we did, right? But what I can say is that at least they know how to pay the bills. They have a plan for that. And I have seen nothing going in that direction here. Many of my friends that I have made here, the connections that I've been able to forge after so much isolation, have been part of that musical and artistic circle, be it theater, karaoke, open mics, like gigs, whatever it is. I try my best to go out and frequent those places, support those artists, because they are the reason why I think most of them are here. It is completely a cyclical action. But you know, I've seen now many of them migrate to Albany over the past month and a half. We lost our jazz jam. We lost a couple things. And given it's winter, you know, things slow down generally. But guess where it's popping? In Albany. So it makes me worried about the future of our city. It makes me worry that we are complying and that we are giving up what actually brings joy and life to it, that it is being snuffed out, and that essentially we will just become cogs going through the motions, not having what really brings passion to a place. Now, after seeing this, after living it, there are still things going on, for sure. There's always something to do, but the overall energy has diminished. And seeing what's on the docket for the future, when you look at all of the artists who were hurt this past summer when that ordinance immediately went into play after all of these establishments had booked them, now they did not have their security that they had planned for. I know myself and them have looked at this city recently, and we've seen it essentially turn into a potential bleak future. Now, this forever home is starting to look like it's not so ever. And in recent days, probably the last couple of months, I have actively searched outside of it. I have searched outside of the state because, quite frankly, I'm freaking tired of it. It is sad to me that nobody else showed up on this issue. And by all means, like, I would absolutely prioritize the homeless, the soon to be, because of everything going on with our landlords, trees, and everything else. But it doesn't diminish why people come here in the first place, too. So I'm trying to find my place here, because I did actually write stuff down and then I totally went off script. But what I would like to say is that I desperately hope that you guys consider having this matter actually voted upon, rather than just instilled by an individual who is playing to her own agenda when she couldn't even be here for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi.
Hello, great job. I'm Brad Hansen. I live on 6 and 106, which is north central or south Lansingburg, depending on who you ask. I would have moved to Troy earlier, but I'll tell you a story. My partner and I were looking at apartments, and we were actually between a place in Troy and a place in Albany. The place in Troy was cheaper, and that was exciting. We went to go see this place. We were greeted by a tenant that lived upstairs. The tenant showed us the apartment. They explained, so tell us a little bit about the owner, like learn a little bit if I can. Like, well, I've never met them. It's actually run by a property management company. Oh, cool. So what are they like? I've never met them either. They texted me and asked if I would open the door for you. Okay, let's check it out. It is cheap. And we go through this building, and it looks like what they're charging for it, to be clear. And we are still thinking about it because, again, it is cheap, and we want desperately actually to live in Troy. We check out the outdoors. There is very clear wood rot in outside structures built onto the property. There is a massive blue tarp put over a giant hole in the roof. The chimney is being held up by caution tape. There are holes in the porch, clearly, just whole holes in the porch, and broken glass everywhere. We didn't take it. And so we ended up moving to Albany, where they have residential occupancy permits, where if we were touring a place in Troy and they had residential occupancy permits, codes would have never let them try to rent that place out, let alone have people living there for as long as they probably were. Point one. We need good cause protection for the same reason we need residential occupancy permits. People shouldn't have to have this long laundry list of things that they notice when they're thinking about moving into a place. There should be some level of guarantee. That's why we need ROPs. But when someone finds themselves in an apartment and they see problems, for instance, like we heard in many of the testimonies last year when there was a different set of people sitting in front of us today, who testified that there was one working outlet in their entire unit. And it was in the back, and they used extension cords to run space heaters to the front of the house because also the furnace didn't work. And the primary reason they could not talk, they were afraid, literally afraid of retaliation. It's the only place they could afford. And there are countless stories like that. Many of you probably canvassed. I hope you talked to tenants, and I hope they were forthcoming about the kind of things that they're dealing with. It's terrifying. And so we need good cause. We also need good cause because people haven't gotten wage increases in a long time. Sean Collins talked about livable wages. People are being pinched in both directions. They can't afford rent. They aren't getting paid better. The cost of living for literally everything we know is going up. And these people are trying to raise families in this city, and they can't afford basic things. And then on top of that, they are being exploited by landlords who don't really care what happens to that building. They bought it. They never did anything with it. They moved on. Thanks for the rent. Good luck. We need to return the zombie property program. We need a registry to address vacant buildings. We need to make room for new housing and businesses and return our many physical assets to the tax rolls to pay for the bold agenda that so many people came out and talked to you about today. We also, though, have to balance that with investing in free public community spaces. Not everything has to be for profit. There should be places where kids are allowed to play and play safely, to enjoy green spaces, to plant flowers. There's beautiful things that happen when people feel like they own the city, the block around them. I know we have parks. They need places right outside their door. The place on 6th Avenue, that old school building that's been left abandoned for a very long time. It was bulldozed. I'm new here. I don't know the names of these places, but I do see this horrifying block of weeds that people should be able to walk their dogs on, have playgrounds, maybe play sports, things that make life worth living. You could also accelerate this process. We have people who own buildings who really don't feel any pressure. And in fact, it's actually beneficial for their tax portfolios to have this loss. And so they go on, and we have to look at these blighted buildings that have been forsaken and given up on, when reality, if had they been intervened sooner or sold or something, they wouldn't have been allowed to fall into the level of disrepair they have. I would recommend maybe something like a vacancy tax. I know we have our fees, and I know codes enforcement could be far more aggressive and mount up fees. Maybe charge people who aren't plowing or shoveling their sidewalks. But a vacancy tax that's aggressive and not just is something that I don't care if we never collect a dime, if it forces people to make decisions about what they're going to do with these vacant properties that are assets for our community, but right now are liabilities. We need stronger codes enforcement. I think I've belabored this point, and many have talked about it before. I'd like to introduce a new idea that I really expected Mr. Spinner to mention. Maybe you cut him off just in time to save me this. A right to repair for tenants. Cities like Utica allow tenants to make repairs to their building if landlords fail to address those issues in a timely manner, and then they are allowed to withhold rent. Basically, they take it off of their rent payments to the landlords. For instances like when your electricity doesn't work or your furnace is in disrepair and you've told them this and they don't do anything about it, and it's the dead of winter and you need heat. So when city officials, I won't name them, others have though, proclaim Troy is open for business, that too often means it's open to exploitation of its people, and that is so true when it comes to Troy's tenants. And one of the ways this materializes is out of city landlords. We should create a registry of out of city landlords. When I was canvassing this year in this election cycle, people talked about it all the time. I've never met my landlord. I don't even know what they look like. They bought the building, my rent raised. They never did anything about any of the problems. They never made any improvements. These are homes. These are places where people live. They are not stock investment portfolios, but that is exactly how they are treated. And I'm not trying to say that in-city landlords are so much better, but it does seem to be true that outside city landlords are especially vexing for the people that live here. On top of that, they are very extractive. If they live outside of the city, that means they're not spending money in Troy. They are taking rent from people, and people are rent burdened in Troy. You have 50, 60% of their income going towards rent. And all of that money is going outward. And honestly, yes, out of state pisses me off as much as the next guy. But Brunswick, is it any better? And so make a registry. Consider things like taxing them more, as making preferences around people who live in Troy versus people who live outside of Troy. And then another piece, and I'm probably running way too high until the end of the day, I'm sorry, right of first refusal for existing tenants might be something worth considering. Long-term tenants, that's something that if we pass good cause, we might be able to help on that front. But what about when landlords choose to sell the building? Tenants should get a chance to purchase the place that they've been living at. Hopefully, and I've seen, talking to people, they've been living here for decades. They should be able to stay. Address predatory towing, stop stealing people's cars. More street trees, encourage homeowners to plant more, find ways to incentivize them doing that, and maybe find ways to encourage them to stop taking their trees down. I don't know if anyone's gone to Pine Hills in Albany. This place is literally a forest. Someone mentioned urban forest. There are 5-7 blocks of places that are walkable. There are trees everywhere. It is a joy to walk through it. And I think in 30 years, people deserve to live in a place like that here in Lansingburg and Troy and South Troy. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And then lastly, once a tree gets cut down, it's gone. And these trees take decades to grow. And so we should at least have 10 days for the public to be notified that the city is planning to cut a tree down, and maybe even object to it. I think that's the least we can do for something that's been providing us air and beauty and shade for a lot longer than we were here. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Hi, my name is Mark DeVette. I live in South Central of Troy in the Little Italy neighborhood. I am a landlord and I support everything that Eric Spinner was talking about, and I just want to reiterate that. I support good cause. I support everything that was talked about. There's two things that haven't really been talked about tonight, and I just want to reiterate those things. First, 2 years ago, we lost our planning commission, which was a group of people who were within the industry who understood what buildings were and how they operated. And we lost that, and the planning board that we received in return has nobody of real substance in that program. And I would like to see a revitalization of the planning commission be reinstituted and the planning board being absolved. And the other thing I would think about is alternative revenue sources for the city, not just in code violations, but also making city traffic ordinances, city traffic patterns being looked at as possible camera operations, specifically in the Hoosick corridor. We could institute school zone cameras on the top of Hoosick that could slow down the Brunswick corridor. A lot of what comes in through that Hoosick area are not residents of Troy, so this would be not burdening the city of Troy, it would be burdening the people that use that corridor to get to Brunswick. Maybe that would slow down the Brunswick vitalization of Hoosick that is now making the Troy traffic absolutely untenable on Hoosick itself. I know that there have been traffic studies about Hoosick Street in relation to Route 7, as it gets to the 7 corridor, and maybe we need to relook at those policies to see if there's anything that we can incorporate to cool the traffic on Hoosick Street. The last thing I want to kind of hit on is, again, I want to reiterate what Gigi Sweets said about the music or ordinances. Revitalizing our downtowns to bring back the arts is fundamental what's going to revitalize the city, and we should be working strongly to do that. Otherwise, I agree with most of people are saying tonight, and I want you to be aware that this is your mandate. What these people are saying tonight, this is your mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Hopefully, you won't have too many more people. I'm Annie Borthwick, and I moved to Troy at age 23 into the downtown. And I moved here because my husband was a Trojan. But I loved Troy from the moment I first saw it because I liked old brick and I liked tar paper roofs. And people said, crazy, crazy person. And so I remember when we had a lot of stores. I remember when it all collapsed. I bought a wonderful mansion in 1975 for $9,000 because nobody wanted it. And I ran a guest house called Cherry Hall Guest House for 32 years in that mansion. I want to tell you that what I think about Troy is that I turned 80 this summer, and I hope to be in the house that I bought last year that needed a lot of renovation. I hope to be in it in another month or so. I think that Troy is a beautiful place, and one of the things that makes it so beautiful for other people to know about is we have aerial photography now. And the difference of seeing Troy from up in the air is just magnificent. People all over can see what Troy looks like. And I think that's such a different kind of thing. We had the Victorian stroll because people hated the old brick buildings and hated what they could see out of their car windows. And we started the Victorian stroll so they get out of their cars and actually look at the buildings. And that was really significant. I think now, I hope to be around for another 20 years. And if I make it 105, I'll be here till 2050. And I think given the condition of climate change, all of upstate New York is going to be full of people from other places. It's really important that Troy find a way to keep itself going and to allow its generations of its current residents to still live here. There's so much things can happen. And there you are with enormous quantities of things to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
This feels different than the last public forum when it was just me and you guys. But hello, my name is Noelle, and I proudly live on Oakwood Avenue. To say I am excited to see fresh faces on this council would be quite the understatement. The last time I addressed this council in September, I spoke very clearly about the disappointments that I had in the conduct and choices of your predecessors. I informed them that their consistent betrayals to their constituents were egregious and disrespectful. I informed them that their granting the mayor limitless checks to pay her developer friends to destroy our neighborhoods was rotting our city. I informed them that my neighbors and I are growing angrier and angrier at the lack of restraint and transparency being displayed both in these meetings and out on our streets. I informed them that if the behavior continued, the people of Troy would remove them. Well, you know how that ended. To say, welcome, new Troy City Council members. Yay! We, as you, are Trojans at our core. To be from Troy, to live in Troy, it means something. And while our reputation may not always gleam, to be here is to be proud. To be here is to be proud of our working collars, proud of our closely knit neighborhoods, proud of our grit and our will and our history. To be a Trojan means to be gruff, but kind, rough around the edges, but standing 10 toes down for your elderly neighbor, drinking cheap beer, but buying everyone around. To be from Troy is to be proud. And for the last 10 months, being a regular attendant of these meetings, I have not been proud of the conduct of the elected officials here. I, with my own two eyes, watched a complete breakdown of what the citizens wanted and what our representatives voted for. I watched with my own two eyes city council members ignore and belittle their own constituents. I watched with my own two eyes as project after project got rammed through without any discussion of substance or clear answers from the administration. I could not be more disappointed in the lack of research, the lack of transparency, the lack of good faith, the lack of professionalism, the lack of intelligent discussion, the lack of data. Well, you get the idea. To have a city with one of the most premier educational institutions in the country be represented by people who would spend more time name calling and creating imaginary scenarios instead of using one iota of good research to benefit their constituents is frankly embarrassing. A whole city of engineers and we're being governed by clowns. But I digress. One decision in particular stands out, the refusal of the adoption of good cause eviction, which had overwhelming support from constituents. I sat here and listened to person after person, landlord and tenant alike, in support of these protections for renters. Renters who are the lifeblood of this city, and 63% of all the folks actually living in Troy, we deserve protection from the clear problem of slumlords. I cannot believe, after all the support, all the clear data, all the testimonials from citizens, our district representatives still chose to betray his constituents. This is the kind of behavior that will get you quickly removed. And I do hope this serves as a reminder to you all, we, the constituents, are your priority. We, the Trojans, are asking for your votes to reflect our values, our wants, and our needs, not developers, not construction companies, not a camera-hungry mayor, not greedy businesses who would sacrifice our peace and neighborhoods for the almighty dollar. Us, the people of Troy, chose you. Now you need to choose us. We are watching you closely. The people of Troy have much to be suspicious about after the last 2 years, and we will no longer hand the reins of our city to reckless drivers. We are hungry for a government that is reflective of our population, that cares about the life of its people, and will defend our peace, our community, and our tax dollars. We are hungry for the accountability that has been missing the last 2 years, and we expect that you provide it. Expectations are high, but excitement and hopefulness are higher. I look forward to 2 years of accountability, transparency, professionalism, fair and timely labor contracts, and clear budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the council as part of our public forum tonight? Well, I just want to, I'm sure I speak for the entire council, thanking each and every one of you for coming out tonight, for those who spoke. You clearly fulfilled our hopes that you would share your thoughts, your dreams for our beloved city. And so we even received some emails, which we will be answering as well. So I hope you understand, we do want to usher in a more transparent environment. It takes, it's not something that we can accomplish alone, and I'm hoping that we can work with the administration collaboratively to slow the process to a point where there's complete transparency and an opportunity for us to really study the issues and for you to be aware of them as well. So again, thank you all for coming. Have a good evening. Safe travels. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Stuber. Second by Councilmember Favreau. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned, and thank you.